this is what John's gospel puts on the lips of Jesus as his last words. Tetelestai. It is finished. And the Protestant guy and the Catholic guy want to say, what is finished? What gets finished on the cross? And you know, the natural thing is to say, well, you know, the work of redemption is complete. You know, the atonement is finished, or you know, Jesus. You know, nobody wants to say that Jesus is just coming up with a fancy way of saying, I die, Horatio. He's saying that, you know, something has been finished. Well, what has been finished? Well, okay, and the staple answer in American Protestantism especially is to say that the atonement is finished. You know, that the blood has been spilled to cover up sins and assuage the wrath of God. And but the gospel doesn't even say that. Nothing about the atonement or redemption is complete on the cross. Lots of people hung on crosses. Lots of would-be messianic figures in the first century hung on crosses and died. That's why I said, a dude on a cross is just a dead guy hanging on a tree if there's no resurrection. The only thing that gives cross or anything that Jesus did on the cross any meaning at all is the resurrection. So what is finished? Well, John's gospel is sort of arranged on this 7-day, 7-miracle thing. You know, John starts, as we said earlier, with the in the beginning, recapitulating that creation story. Then he goes through all the miracles. He gets to the sort of 6th day, and the 6th day of Jesus' ministration is where the cross happens. The "it is finished" is the old creation is finished. That old life of suffering and evil and death dealing and violence and every other thing that we human beings have screwed up in the first creation, that creation has been brought to a conclusion. And you go, okay, how do you know that? Well, because the resurrection story that opens up the next chapter, three different times it says, on the first day, on the first day. By the way, on the first day of the week, it's on the first day of the week that the disciples experience the resurrection. It is the first day of the new creation, the first day of the new order. So I love the crucifix. I love the dead dude hanging on a tree, because it is God's decisive no that the old creation is done and finished and vanquished, and, you know, we're just mopping up now. New creation has begun. And you know, of course, the crucifix is where it's got the resurrected Christ, you know, in the cruciform shape. It is a reminder of that, you know, that this is a sort of opaque imagery. But I think that you've got to really hold Good Friday and Easter Sunday together, because you're closing off a decisive end to one thing and a decisive beginning to a new thing, and to have either of those truths put away. You know, what a great flag to wave in the face of an oppressor. Crucifix. You got an expiration date. and by the way, the expiration date is long past. You're done and rotting.
Well, I mean, it's the beautiful, even though it's not really the cross as much as it is the Cairo, but what is it? Constantine's "in this sign you conquer."
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it says the instrument of what was once vanquish and defeat, and this kind of channeling some cult of the saints and role reversals here, but I mean, the sign of torture and defeat becomes a sign of torture and defeat, but on the other end. So instead of you looking at it as that's the end. It's the beginning
Yeah.
of the new chapter.
And that's the way to put it. It's the end that becomes the beginning of the new chapter. Sorry, you were looking at your Bible hunting. Did you find what you were looking at?
I was just trying to think of what God said when he finished creating the earth.
Yeah.
And I was thinking for some reason that he said,
Not quite it is finished, but comes with the same sort of summary point, right?
that's what I was trying to find. It wasn't quite what I thought it was.
God looked at all that He had made and said, "Behold, it was very good," and He rested.
And he rested. So I was just trying to see if there was any.
Which is why the resurrection is described as rest. It is the rest of the Son that we enter into.
Well, if you think about it, then he rested. In 3 words, and then it is finished. And whenever you finish with something, you're resting from it, right?
Yeah.
Sort of, maybe.
So you turned into origin. Good for you.
Okay.
All right, I love it. Okay, so why and this we camp out on the analogical because it is so important, and it has a way of doing what authentically Catholic faith always does. Is it validates the authentically human. We love the body. We're not Gnostics. And so life lived in the flesh is valuable, both for its own sake, and also because it gestures and points us to things that are genuinely true about God. By the way, in this regard, Karl Barth hated natural theology. Hated it because he thought it always tended toward idolatry. Catholics have generally embraced natural theology. You've heard of natural law, perhaps. Well, this is an attempt to understand from the ordering of creation what is true of God and of ourselves.
What was Barth? Was he Lutheran?
No, he was a Protestant, Swiss Calvinist, basically Presbyterian.
Okay, because if there's a one of my emphases areas, if yours is Newman, mine is spirituality of sports.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that's what I vibe on crazy. That's what it is. And there's a sports theologian in the United Kingdom, and what is his name? The book that he just came out with though is called A Brief Lincoln Harvey. His name is Reverend Dr. Lincoln Harvey, and he is an Anglican priest /
I was going to say I thought I'd heard that name before.
/ professor, something like that. And he is forever on Twitter putting up on the feed little quotes from Karl Barth, and I'm forever favoriting them because a lot of them, or at least the ones he quotes, seem kind of Catholic to me.
Bart is an interesting cat, and Bart is an interesting illustration of why you always really keep saying this. So to Tracy, you always need the dialectic imagination to balance out the analogical, because the analogical imagination often does wander headlong into idolatry. And so it always needs a stop sign, a pause button, a hold on a second, you've gone too far. That's the dialectic imagination. So let's chase this out, and I'll round this off, and then I'm going to cut you loose. Dionysius is really important to this whole way of thinking. The important thing to know about Dionysius, on which Bart and Tracy and Greeley are sort of building their architectonic structure, are building, is a way of talking about how we hold together the instinct for analogy and dialectic. So how does it work? analogy and dialectic work together as prayer. You know, it's an aid for reflection, it's a way of working through the world, it's a way of doing apologetics. But before anything else, it's a style, a way of prayer. It's a way of meditating not on God or in the midst of God, but meditating with God. Trying to think about God in ways that are ultimately honoring and beautiful, and things that give expression to our prayer, that expand the horizons of what we understand about God, and ultimately our love and our worship of God. And so what he says is, rather than, you know, two radically opposed things, that they are rightly related to one. So let's do our God as Father. Analogical thinking. All right, so here you are in the presence of God. And you're doing a kind of abbreviated Lectio Divina. You know, we're doing a little bit of what Ignatius Loyola does when he's, you know, trying to coax you into meditation, those little 3-verse summaries of any gospel story. Trying to give you a little bit of thing to think about and whatever. So you throw this up here. God as your Father. Let's think about all of the impulses for prayer that opens up. So God as a Father. What's the first thing I think of when I think of God as a Father?
Provider.
Fighter? Ah, that's nice.
Provider.
Huh?
Provider.
Well, provider.
Yeah, not fighter.
Okay. Okay.
Fighter, good in the sense of protector.
Yeah.
Protector. Okay.
Creator.
Okay.
Teacher.
All right.
Guide.
Guide.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Disciplinary.
Ah, nice.
I mean, male. I mean, like if we're gonna sort of take it to the extreme, as I imagine
Okay.
we might.
All right. All right. So I'm just throwing
some
women
women in here.
Well, I'm saying, like, I mean, if we're gonna.
Now, when I think about my dad, yeah, I think if there's anybody that I want his approval
Yeah.
Pastor.
in the world, so I sort of think of fatherhood as standard bearer. You know, if my dad's proud of me, my dad's happy with me, you know, I figure that I've made good in life, right? Okay. Any others?
Well, if you think about that sense, comforter.
Ah, nice. Okay. Hey, I'm really like that with my
I know my
girls.
kids look towards me for comfort.
My girls.
Yeah, I didn't look for my dad that way.
Yeah.
But I know my son and daughter look to me that way.
Okay. Well, that's a good start. Okay. Now, any one of these